Hello everybody. Today we're in for a rare treat. I finally got my hands on a Stanley number 444. Let's take a look at it. I've been wanting to get my hands on a 444 for as long as I can remember. Finally got one. I got it all broke down so we can see the parts. I got really lucky with this one. The nickel plating is like 99% there. Looks really good. It's got the original sample of the work that it does. That little piece of wood right there. Original screwdriver. 4 irons. I put together my own instruction manual, didn't have one with it, and the parts list. So that's it. I always wanted this plane. Never read anything good about them. They're pretty rare. Supposed to be hard to work with. We're going to put it together and find out. So here's a look at her all put together. As you can see, it's a pretty nice looking plane. A couple years ago I bought a Porter cable Dovetail jig. I named it the Intimidator. The instruction manual is like 60 pages. So we're going to see what this one does. Here's a look at it from the front. Backside, I think there's about 30 parts in all if you count all the screws and washers. Another view from the back. And here's a look at the bottom. You can see those screw holes in it. There's 2 on the bottom and 1 on the top. According to the instructions, you can mount wood there instead of having metal on wood. It'll be wood on wood. The instructions and the part of the tag that's left on, or the label that's left on the iron box, it tells you that the iron is supposed to be sharpened at 7.5 degrees. And that's why that line is scribed across the box right there. You're supposed to be able to take your irons and use that line to make sure you've got them at 7.5 degrees. I think I'm starting to get intimidated. So now all I have to do is figure out how this can do this, and I'm going to do it on video. I'm not going to practice first, so we'll see how hard this thing is to really do. So the first thing for me to do is to read the instructions, and right off the bat I noticed that these instructions are not exactly for this plane. This one here is for a Stanley Sweetheart, and my 444 is an older model than what the Sweetheart is. In the instructions it has the same breakout of parts, and the thing that's different are those parts that I'm going to point to right here and here. Those are called spur blocks. There's 2 of them. That's what they look like for the Sweetheart plane. This is what they look like for mine. So I don't think that's a big deal, easy to figure out. I've got 1 set of spur blocks, or 1 spur block on the plane already. And the difference is 1 spur block is used for the number 7 iron and another one is used for the 4. And I guess if you're using a 3 you don't even need the spur block, but I'm just guessing because I haven't read into it yet. But that's all I've seen so far. And here's a look at the instructions. It isn't the 60 plus pages like my Porter cable. That's it right there. Can't be that hard. So I've got a couple pieces of 3/4 inch pine. The instructions tell you the first thing you got to do is use a knife to scribe 2 lines across that are going to be the width of what your dovetail is, and they have to be wider than 1/4 inch, so I put them at 3/8. So the next step was to select a blade that fit in the dado, and that happens to be the number 3, the smallest one. And then you got to get spurs on there that match that size, which I did. So if we look at the spurs, you can see they're set up to work with that number 3 iron. And then the angled side fence is floating, so it's going to move up and down, and you set your depth. I set the depth right here for a 3/8 inch deep dado. Then you're supposed to attach batten boards to your piece of wood. You can see I got some extra lines there because it took me a while to figure this thing out. But what you end up doing is you set your plane to where that inside edge lines up with the line that you scribed, and then that's where the board goes, right up against the side of the fence. You flip her around and you do the same thing on the other side. With that done, I'm supposed to be able to cut the dado. So let's see how this works. So I'm here to tell you the Intimidator's got nothing on this number 444. After a lot of trial and error, and there's the evidence, and over there, I think I finally got it figured out. So I've got a new piece of wood set up. I've got my lines cut with the razor knife, going with 9/16 inch wide. I got the batten boards down, and we're ready to try this again. Alright, we're ready for the first cut. I found that these shorter strokes work a lot better and you want to keep it against the fence as the batten board. This time I think I've got it. So here's a look at the first one. Definitely wasn't the easiest planing that I've ever done. I imagine it's going to get better with practice, but I do have 1/2 successfully cut. The next step is to turn it around and cut the other side. So we're going to do that. This is what I struggled with on about the 8 or 9 attempts of previous cutting. And when I went to short strokes and making sure I keep the fence against the side here on the batten board, it works good. What it was doing was drifting off to the right and not making a nice clean dado cut. So here we go. Paying particular attention to the fence up against the batten board, making sure that it stays where it's supposed to. Every once in a while I found that the shavings will build up in here and they'll bind and the depth stop won't be working properly. getting there. A little bit on the front end. That's it. Success. Never would have thought it possible after the last 2 hours of practice. And to think, I'm out of breath, and I made that look easy, didn't I? One good thing about the 444 is I think it would keep you in shape if you're doing a lot of work with this thing. So there it is, I'm halfway there. So the first step in getting ready to cut the tongue is it says you got to take the plane apart. These fences come off really simple. I like the way this is designed. That wing nut right there, loosen it up. You saw how the depth stop fell out of the way. And now she just slides right down and the fence is off. And it tells me I got to switch out the iron. So I'm supposed to put in, I think it says it's the large one, the number 30. So that's what I'm going to do. So it's the number 20, not the number 30. Simple to do. Loosen the screw. Take out the old one. Put in the new one. And it's pretty much, I found to put it right in there. It fits flat right up against the bottom. Give the depth an eyeball for adjustment. And set it. So I've got the plane all set up for cutting the tongue. Got the depth, has to be perfect to get a tight fit. Let's give her a try. One side done. Other side done. Test the fit. That one's pretty good. So after getting off to a rough start, almost giving up on the 444, I stuck with it and I taught myself how to use it. So the Porter Cable Intimidator and the Stanley 444 are probably equally as hard to learn how to use, but the end results speak for themselves. Both of them do a phenomenal job at what they produce. So this joint right here is a tight joint. It doesn't move. There's a look at it from here. I don't like the idea of the batten boards having to tack them on. I mean, that means you got to take a little wood putty or something and fix it. I'm sure there's a way that they could be clamped on instead. But all in all, it was really a neat experience, and it's nice to say that I was able to use a 444. There it is. Probably never going to be used again. It'll end up going into somebody's collection, sit up on a shelf somewhere to be proud of. So this old Stanley 444 was a bit intimidating at the start. I stuck with it, I figured out how to use it, and I successfully made a joint. It turned out really well. It's super tight. I would not want to be doing this all the time. I'm glad I did it once. I hope you all enjoyed the video. This plane's going to go for sale on eBay probably in April. So stay tuned for more.